How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, March 21st, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Antoine Griezmann. The elite French forward for Atletico Madrid turns 31 today, and my intention with this episode is, of course, to zoom in and look and focus on how Antoine Griezmann has separated himself amongst hundreds of thousands of other people playing his position to be one of the best forwards to play the game, and not only that, a World Cup winner. And I'm also going to zoom out and look and see how he's been able to impact the entire soccer game on a macro level as well as at a micro level too. If you're not familiar with Antoine Griezmann, he stands at about 5'9". I want to really kind of describe his playing style as really one that's centered around his confidence in his own abilities. He's a very fast player. He's, like I said, he can really make any pass on the field. And if you kind of get him in one of those situations, he definitely can score. Even while he was playing for the French national team in the World Cup, he was the designated penalty kick taker, just to give you a sense of how people on his club and his country have trusted Antoine Griezmann with that spot ever since he's gotten to the league. So just to get back into his career, he's originally from Macon, France. He would end up finding his way on the Real Sociedad youth team in Spain before he eventually got called up. His very first season, he would be called up into La Liga, or to be playing as a professional would be in his very first season with Real Sociedad in his age 18 season in 2009-2010. He would start 30 of the 39 second division games he played. Real Sociedad would finish at the bottom of the second division, and they actually have not been to the second division. They've been in La Liga since 2010. Griezmann helped break them out. In that very first season, he was actually able to add 6 goals and 5 assists for himself, as he was starting to help this team really kind of establish themselves as one of those teams in Spain. To at least make it up to that top level is a very tough feat to even do in the first place. But following that, he would go on to return for his second season with Real Sociedad. His very first season in La Liga was his age 19 season in 2010-2011. In his very first season there, in a season where Sociedad only played in La Liga, they would go on to finish with 7 goals and 2 assists that season in his very first La Liga season as a teenager, essentially. Not to mention that would really kind of be his introduction. He would start to play more games. He was playing as many games as he was the year before, as his role would start to increase. And more was asked of him. His third season with Real Sociedad was his age 20 season in 2011-2012. In his age 20 season, he would go on to start 28 of the 30 games he played in a season where Real Sociedad would end up as the 12th best team in Spain that year. He would finish with 7 goals in La Liga for the second year in a row. This like as a young kid who had to break Real Sociedad at the second division. He also added 3 assists, which was 1 more than the previous year. And then, of course, following that season, he would go on to return. After that year, he would return to Real Sociedad for his 4th season. His 4th season with the club was his age 21 season in 2012-2013. In that season, he would start 32 of the 34 games. In a season where Real Sociedad had the best finish that they would have while he was there, they would finish 4th in La Liga and qualify for Champions League the following season. Within La Liga itself, Antoine Griezmann would score 10 goals. He would cross the 10-goal threshold in La Liga for the very first time in his career, as he also had 3 assists. So you could see he was slowly getting better with the games that he played. After his 3rd season, he would go on to play 1 last full season with Real Sociedad. His 5th season was his age 22 season in 2013-2014. In that season, he would start 31 of the 35 games he played for a Real Sociedad team that finished 7th in La Liga. Within La Liga itself, he finished with 16 goals and 3 assists. That would be the most goals he ever scored with Sociedad, and it'll be the second year in a row in La Liga that he would finish with a double-digit amount of goals. Looking at how their season would end, they would end up going all the way to group stage of Champions League, as that's where they would end up getting knocked out for that season as well, as they were in the same group as Man U, Leverkusen, and Shakhtar Donetsk. But that is pretty much how that season would end. But even in his first Champions League stint in 2013-2014 for Sociedad, he was able to score a goal and bag an assist before he left Sociedad, and he even will go on to play 3 games in the Copa del Rey. In 2014, he would go on to make his senior debut for France, not to mention that in 2014, he would go on to play with France in the 2014 World Cup, right as he was promoted to the team. In the 2014 FIFA World Cup, he would go on to play 5 games. And within the tournament, France would go on to make it out of group stage after beating Honduras and Switzerland. They drew with Ecuador. In the round of 16, they would beat Nigeria 2-0 before losing 1-0 in the quarterfinal round to the eventual champs, Germany. But that would be Griezmann's very first taste of the World Cup. And following that season, actually, he would go on to be picked up by Atletico Madrid before his age 23 season. His very first stint at Atletico Madrid would go on to be 5 seasons. After his 5 seasons at Sociedad, his very first season at Atletico Madrid would be his age 23 season in 2014-15. In that season in La Liga, he would start 29 of the 37 games in a season where Atletico Madrid would go on to finish 3rd in La Liga for the season. Looking at their Copa del Rey, they would make it all the way to the quarterfinals before they ended up losing on aggregates to Barcelona. Or they would actually end up losing, not on aggregates, but they ended up losing to Barcelona regardless. They would go all the way to the final of the Supercopa de España as they would go on to beat Real Madrid on aggregates 2-0. So that would be their very first title, or that would be Griezmann's very first title in Spain, playing for a team that was actually at the very top of its game. Not to mention that they would also go on to quarterfinals of the Champions League that year. Once they made it to the quarterfinals, they would end up getting knocked out by Real Madrid. Real Madrid would get knocked out by Juve in the semifinals, and Juve would end up losing to Barcelona in the final. That would be the very first time Griezmann would play in those leagues. Looking at his very first season in Atletico Madrid, his season would see him finish with 22 goals. That would be the most goals that Antoine Griezmann had ever finished a season with, especially in La Liga while playing for Atletico Madrid. Not to mention that also in that season, he would add a couple of Champions League goals for Atletico before they got knocked out in the quarterfinal round. Following that 2014-15 season, Griezmann would come back for his second season with Atletico Madrid. In his age 24 season in 2015-16, he would start 36 of the 38 La Liga matches in a season where Atletico would finish as 3rd in La Liga for the 2nd year in a row while he had been there. Taking a look at how they fared in their how they fared within La Liga itself, Antoine Griezmann would equal what he did the year before as he finished with 22 goals. But this year he would go on to finish with 5 assists. It'll be the first time he finished with 5 assists in a La Liga season as well. His 27 combined scoring plays would make his age 24 season just the season where not only was to show that his season before was not only a fluke, that he definitely belonged at the top level. Alongside all this, in 2015-16, Atletico Madrid would go on to lose in the quarterfinal round of the Copa del Rey. In the quarterfinal round, they would find themselves losing to Celta Vigo on aggregates, but particularly within this tournament, he would go on to finish with 3 goals in 3 matches he played. He played 13 matchups in the UEFA Champions League that season, as Atletico Madrid would go all the way to the final. They went all the way to the final just to lose to Real Madrid. Real Madrid would go on to win the final on penalty kicks, but regardless, Antoine Griezmann was able to add 7 goals and an assist in that entire Champions League run. Following this season, following his first 2 years with Atletico, he will go on to compete with France at the Euro Championships in 2016 while they were in France. They would make it through the group stage, beating Romania, Albania, and Switzerland. In their win versus Albania, Griezmann would score the very first goal of that matchup. In the round of 16 versus the Republic of Ireland, they would go on to beat Ireland 2-1, as both of France's goals would come from Griezmann. In the quarterfinals, France would beat Iceland 5-2, as their 5th goal of the game came from Griezmann. In the semifinals, they would beat Germany 2-0, as Griezmann scored both the goals in that game. They would end up losing in the final to Portugal. Antoine Griezmann, in the 7 matches that he played, he finished with 6 goals and 2 assists. That Euro championship would be the only time that he has finished with the Golden Boot virtually in any competition. But when he does play for France, Antoine Griezmann does turn into a scoring beast, and I think that 2016 tournament was evidence of that. Following that tournament in which France ended up as runners-up, he would return for his third season with Atletico Madrid. In his age 25 season in 2016-17, he would go on to start all 36 of the La Liga matchups he played in a season where Atletico Madrid would finish third in La Liga for the third year in a row. Within La Liga itself, Antoine Griezmann would finish with 16 goals as he had 7 assists. His 7 assists at that time were the most that he would record in a La Liga season, and this would be the third consecutive year that he would have at least 20 scoring plays within the La Liga season, when we're talking about goals and assists combined. He would go on to play 5 Copa del Rey games with 4 goals and 2 assists, as Atletico Madrid would go all the way to the semifinal. In the semifinal, they would find themselves losing to Barcelona, who ended up beating Alaves for the actual tournament. And then, not to mention, they would go all the way to the semifinals of Champions League. In Champions League, they would end up losing to Real Madrid, who ended up beating Juventus in the next round. But within that Champions League run, Griezmann would add 6 goals and a couple of assists in the 12 games he played, making it at least the second Champions League season in a row he had at least 5 goals. Following that 2016-17 season, he would go on to return to Atletico for his 4th season there. His age 26 season in 2017-2018 would see him start 30 of the 32 La Liga games he played in a season where Atletico finished as runners-up in La Liga. In the La Liga season, he would go on to finish with 19 goals and 9 assists. His 9 assists are the most assists that he's ever put together in a La Liga season to date. His 28 combined scoring plays are the most that he's ever put together in a La Liga season as well. Also in that 17-18 season, he would go on to help Atletico do the best in Champions League. Before I get to Champions League, actually, he would go on to play 3 games in the Copa del Rey this year, and he would go on to add 2 goals. That season, they would end up losing in the quarterfinal round. The team that would knock them out in the quarterfinal round would be Sevilla. Sevilla would go all the way to the final before they lost to Barca, but they would go on to be knocked out in the group stage of Champions League. Once they were knocked out of group stage, they would go on to win the Europa League. They would go all the way to the final, and then once they made it to the final, they would end up beating Marseille 3-0. And then taking a look at how that game would be fared, Griezmann would score the very first 2 goals of Atletico Madrid winning against Marseille, and of course, with this win, they would go on to Antoine Griezmann would take home his very first continental title, at least for his club, the only one that he was actually able to win. But following that in addition to that Europa League run, or within the Europa League run, he had 6 goals and 2 assists, along with his La Liga season where he had the most combined scoring plays with goals and assists. Following that 2017-2018 season, he would go on to compete with France in the World Cup. And once they were in the World Cup, they would go on to win the World Cup. The reigning World Cup champs are France, as they won the World Cup in Russia. In the group stage, they would end up beating Australia, Peru, and Denmark. In their first game versus Australia, Griezmann would score the very first goal of 2. In the round of 16, France would end up beating Argentina 4-3, as the very first goal of that game from France came from Griezmann. In the quarterfinal, France would end up beating Uruguay 2-0, as their second goal of the game came from Griezmann, and the first one came from Varane. France would end up beating Belgium in the semifinal 1-0, as the lone goal came from Samuel Umtiti. And then in the final, France would end up beating Croatia, as Griezmann would score the second goal there. He would end up scoring 4 goals in the World Cup, 3 of them in the 4 knockout stage rounds. So he would end up being very crucial for France, being a big part of the reason that France was able to take home that title. So he was able to take home that trophy as well. So he took home the World Cup and the Europa League. And then once he got back and he was competing with Atletico Madrid, he would go on to help Atletico Madrid win the Supercopa the following year. They would go on to beat Real Madrid 4-2 for this title. But In addition, this would, of course, transition into Antoine Griezmann's 5th season with Atletico Madrid, in his last season in the very first stint with Madrid, with Atletico. He would go on to start all 37 La Liga matches in a season where Atletico Madrid would finish as runners-up for the second year in a row in La Liga. Looking specifically at how Griezmann fared within the La Liga season, he would go on to finish with 15 goals and 8 assists. This would go on to be the 7th season in a row that he would finish with at least 15 goals within La Liga consecutively. This would be the 4th season in a row that he had at least 5 assists as well. So Antoine Griezmann, of course, was definitely on a tear. And, of course, while winning all the trophies with France and all. Outside of La Liga, like I said, the only trophy that Atletico took home this year was the UEFA Super Cup. They would get knocked out of the round of 16 in the Copa del Rey. The team that would end up knocking Atletico out would be Girona. They would end up losing to Barcelona or to Real Madrid the next round. Real Madrid would lose to Barcelona in the semifinals before Barcelona lost to Valencia in the final. So like I said, Atletico finished in the round of 16 there. They would also get knocked out of the round of 16 in Champions League this year, as they would have to face off against Juventus. Juventus would lose in the next round to Ajax. Ajax would lose to Tottenham in the semifinal before Tottenham lost to Liverpool in the Champions League final. But that's how that season would end. And within the Champions League season, Griezmann would finish with 4 goals and a couple of assists. So following his 5-year stint with Atletico the first time, he would go on to sign with Barcelona right before the 2019-2020 season. He had signed a 5-year deal. As many people had expected that his stint in Barcelona would be a lot more successful than it ended up being. His very first season in Barcelona was his age 28 season in 2019-2020. He would go on to finish with 9 goals and 4 assists in the 35 La Liga matches he played, in a season where Barcelona would finish second in La Liga. Barcelona would also go on to lose in the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey. The team that would end up knocking them out this year would end up being Athletic Bilbao. In the Copa del Rey, he would finish with 3 goals himself, and also Barcelona. He would play 9 Champions League games for Barcelona, as Barcelona would end up getting knocked out of the quarterfinal round. They would lose to Bayern Munich. This was when they lost 8-2 in their one matchup. It was a very embarrassing matchup for them. But Bayern ended up winning the Champions League final that year. Not to mention that they did compete in the Supercopa de España. Once they made it to the Supercopa de España, they lost to Atletico Madrid in the semifinals before they made as they made it through. Griezmann would score in that matchup for them, but it would end up being Real Madrid that beat Atletico Madrid in the Supercopa de España this year. He would not take home a trophy in his very first season with Barcelona, but he'd still have a pretty good season all for himself. And this would transition into his second season with Barcelona, his age 29 season. And in his age 29 season in 2020-2021, his second full season with the team, he would go on to start 32 of the 36 matchups he played for a Barcelona side that would finish 3rd in La Liga. Within the La Liga season, he would go on to finish with 13 goals and 7 assists. This would be the 8th season in a 9-season stretch within La Liga that he would finish with a double-digit amount of goals on the season. And it would be the 5th season in a 6-year stretch that he would finish with at least 5 assists on the year. And at least he was kind of getting his feet under him at Barca, at least as well as he thought he could. In addition to La Liga this year, he would go on to play 6 Copa del Rey games, as Barcelona would go all the way to the final and actually win the Copa del Rey. That would be the first time that Griezmann would help them win it. In the final versus Bilbao, Griezmann would score the first of 4 goals to help Barcelona take home this title. And that would be, like I said, the only trophy that he won with Barcelona. In the Supercopa de España, they would make it to the final, as they ended up losing to Athletic Bilbao at the very end, as Griezmann scored both of Barcelona's goals in the final. But also looking back at how he fared in the Copa del Rey, he had 3 goals and 4 assists in the 6 matchups he played. He had 2 goals and an assist in the Supercopa de España. He would go on to play 7 Champions League games in a season where Barcelona would be knocked out in the round of 16. The team that they ended up losing to would be PSG. PSG would go all the way to the semifinals where they lost to Man City. Man City would end up losing in the Champions League finals to Chelsea. And once his second full season with Barcelona was completed, Antoine Griezmann would compete with France in the 2020 Euros, which were played in 2021 because, of course, COVID delayed it by a year. In the group stage, France would end up beating Germany 1-0. They would end up drawing 1-1 with Hungary as Griezmann scored the only goal in that matchup, and then they would end up drawing with Portugal. And once they made it to the round of 16, France would end up losing to Switzerland on penalty kicks, and that's the last time that France has appeared as a team in an international competition, at least this big. Following this summer, Antoine Griezmann would go on to start his third season with Barcelona. After 3 games of really not scoring, he would be loaned out to Atletico Madrid, where he is still currently on loan, but he is still under control for Barcelona. He started 13 of the 16 games he's played for Atletico Madrid, as he has 3 goals and 2 assists in those games. But right now, Antoine Griezmann is helping an Atletico Madrid team that is holding the 4th best record in Spain. They are sitting about even with Barcelona, as they have played 1 more game than Barcelona. They sit 4 points ahead of 5th place Real Betis, as they sit 12 points out of 1st place. But they are trying to clinch another spot for Champions League this next year. But that kind of gives you a sense of who Antoine Griezmann is coming into the season. For club and country, he has been a player that has shown up for his team at the biggest moments. And it'll be interesting to see what Atletico Madrid does, considering looking at the Champions League. Atletico Madrid is on to the next round, where they're going to be facing off against Manchester City. This coming after they were able to pull off their win against Man U 2-1 within their bracket. So just to get a sense of where he's still competing within La Liga, and he still has championship to look forward to. But I can't wait to see what he does, especially within this next year. And I just can't wait to see what he does within the season. I do think Antoine Griezmann is one of the best soccer players on earth. And I do think that his numbers and his play most definitely backs it up. And with that said, I first want to thank the Pro Football Reference website and the Footy Stats and Transfermarkt and all of the Wikipedia sites that I needed for this piece. If you ever get a chance to watch Antoine Griezmann, I would recommend doing so. He is currently wearing number 8 for Atletico Madrid, as he is currently on loan for Barca. And like I said, I think he's just one of those great players, and I do think that he is just... he's going to go down as a French legend, and at this moment, I still think that he is one of the best players in soccer at his best. And with that said, I do want to wish Antoine Griezmann a happy 31st birthday. And with that said, I will catch you all with another episode tomorrow, once everything from today is done. And hopefully by this time next year, I'll have more for a Antoine Griezmann profile for next year. So until then, thanks for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.